In this video, we are going to look at the next step in our addings fractions progression, which is the first time we'll be adding fractions with different denominators. And in this case, we're going to focus on the denominators of halves, fifths, and tenths. And the reason for that is because it allows students to use everything they know about comparing decimal numbers, so tenths and hundredths, in order to kind of bridge the gap between decimal numbers and fractions. In a lot of cases, students still see fractions as an abstract, different type of number that has no real connection with anything else. But in reality, in a lot of cases, they're a different representation of a decimal numbers. So a lot of the prerequisite work or thought process can be found in other videos that I have on my website. So we're really just going to go quickly through the way that I'd like students to start comparing fractions together. So in the first question, we have a half plus what gives me 55 hundredths. So you'll see here that we're working with the set of questions fractions edition 03. So here the students can start comparing either mentally or on a number line or with a drawing, and realize that a half is the same thing as 5/10, which can be represented as 5/10 as a decimal number, or 50 hundredths. So the question here is 50 hundredths plus what gives me a sum of 55 hundredths, and written like this, we can see that the difference between the two numbers is 5 hundredths. In the next question, which is a part of the set fractions edition 05, for students that are struggling to compare fractions with different denominators, the fractions edition 05 is really, really important. So in this case, we are looking to add 1/5 and 1/2. So in this case, I will draw a pictorial representation of the equation that we're working with. So we'll start with 1/2. And here we have 1/5. And the problem here is that 5 and 2 don't really play very well together. But they do work really, really well with 10. So students should start to recognize that our answer, we can start looking at tenths. And if I go back to my pictures, I can change 1/2 into tenths by cutting 5 ways like so. And I'll see that 1/2 is equal to 5/10. And with my pictorial representation of a fifth, if I cut it in half this way, I now have 10 pieces, 2 of which are colored in. So 1/5 is equal to 2/10. And the sum of 2/10 and 5/10 is 7/10. So the next question we'll look at again is in the fractions 05 deck. So here we have fifths and tenths. 5 and 10 are really friendly numbers already. So here students should start to recognize that 1/5 is equal to 2/10, just like we did in the previous question. Plus what gives me 9/10. And because our place values are similar here, our denominators are similar, tenths and tenths, the numerator, the number on the top of the fraction, really behave very similarly to whole numbers. So students should start to use their knowledge of 2 plus 7 is 9, to also understand that 2/10 plus 7/10 is 9. So now we'll quickly go over some examples of the end goal for this step in our adding fractions progression. And this is working with addition equations that have mixed numbers and improper fractions kind of all blended in together. So I'm going to choose to work with improper fractions. When I add or subtract, I prefer that because I find it easier to deal with the numerators. So 1 and 1/5 is equal to 6/5. The work behind this can be seen in our previous video. So my question now turns into 6/5 plus 5 halves. And now I have different denominators, fifths and halves. So again, I want to go to a friendly number, a number that works well with the both of them, which is 10. So I will switch 6 fifths into 12 tenths and 5 halves into 25 tenths for an answer of 37 tenths. And in this case, I prefer either leaving it like this or even writing it as a decimal number as 3 7/10. So for our next question, again, I'm going to work with improper fractions. So I'll start by changing my 2 1/2 into 5 halves plus what gives me 13 fifths. And again, I'll change both fractions into tenths so I can compare them more easily. So 5 halves is the same as 25 tenths plus what gives me 26 tenths. And the difference between 25 and 26 is 1/10, or the decimal number 1/10. There are some practice questions on the website. Thanks for watching.